Well, William, I'm pleased to say the rain has disappeared for a moment or two so we can get out on the course and have a look at this, which I think is one of the really tough challenges early on in the course.
It is a second big question, and it's one that's really got the riders thinking. You've got a great big fence here, which the horses have got to have a bit of speed to get over, and then you've got to gain control to come down to number 7, which is a very tight bounce up to the bonnet of the Land Rover.
But this is very wide, isn't it? It's about a 6-foot spread at least.
It's going to take some jumping. So you can see the angle you've got to come away from that house at to get right down this bank.
Which is a very steep, the camber.
It's quite a camber, very unbalancing, before you can attack that step up to the hedge ahead of you. Really got to have the horse straight, taking you to it, and it's actually a fence we've been quite worried about.
Now, there's not a lot of room here to play with for takeoff, is there?
No, there's none at all. In fact, there's no room for a whole stride. The horse is literally, he's got to land and immediately take off. He's got to have the confidence to take himself through that very narrow gap, holding on his line. If he has to, he can only jump that high. He can brush through the hedge.
There's a bit of give in it, isn't there?
There is a bit of give in it. Optically, though, it looks very big, and I think a lot of horses will clear it. And then, as you can see, there's 2 long strides to number 8, the trunk. So they've got to land and really then power on forward. And I think some horses might actually get the 3rd stride in there and chip in, and you just got to see what's going to happen.
Well, William Fox-Pitt certainly nervous about this Discovery Valley with Tamarillo. He had a run out of the narrow fence at the World Equestrian Games in Aachen. He let him down at Badminton this year, but absolutely no problem there.
Well, Zara, inevitably you're going to get wet with the weather, typical British summertime, but the idea is not to get soaking at the water.
No, this is a good spectator fence because everyone wants you to get wet. But yeah, the idea is not to get all of you wet. And this year it's a little bit different. They've moved the fence out so you can see more water before the fence, but hopefully it's more a rider frightener than for the horses, because by here they should be committed to jumping into the water. There's another option as well this year, which has got a slightly straighter approach but more water being seen. But I'm going to go this way because last year it worked, so I'm thinking why not go the same route if it worked last year.
So they land into the water. Does a water feature put the horses off at all?
No, I mean hopefully that's what we try and teach them, because horses don't naturally jump into water. But with the big hedge, hopefully we've committed in, and they don't really see it until they're in. Big drop down, sit up, and then hopefully 3 strides across the water, and then to this little step on the angle again, and then it should be a bounce stride over this hedge. So most of the water you take on the angle, the fence is on the angle, but hopefully get a good enough shot in so that when you're in, then everything else can take place.
So you've got momentum going out over this and then back through.
And then we're back through a little bit of water and then off again to the next part.
Zara.
She's an awesome rider, isn't she? You know, she took a long time to be given the credit she really deserved. And of course, the Queen's granddaughter, and often people love to say, well, of course she's good because this, that and the other. She's good because she's talented.
Yeah, when you've had a good horse like Toy Town, it's hard to get a backup.
Well, Mary, this is the last major obstacle out on the course here in the main arena. Horses perhaps beginning to tire a little bit. How would you approach this one?
Yes, it's quite a serious fence. Well, it's the last, as you say, real question on the course. And the horses can be feeling quite different now compared to how they feel at the beginning. You know, they've been galloping for about 11 minutes. And you have to be very aware of how your horse is feeling as to how you approach this fence. But I'm hoping to gallop in through into the main ring, come and approach this first hedge slightly left of centre. Be very conscious that I've got to be turning right, thinking right all the time, to be able to try and attempt the direct way through the 4 hedges. But I think it's going to be very difficult to turn and to get to that last hedge, but we'll find out on Saturday. But all being well, jump this hedge. It's quite an open 2 strides to this next hedge. So I'll try and jump this hedge quite fairly strongly, so that we're sort of making up ground as we're going towards this hedge, so that I can hopefully afford to be steadying a little bit as we jump these two hedges. The distance between these two is a 1 stride distance. If I can jump this a little bit steadier and controlling my horse, I can then be turning over part B of this fence, 28A, 28B, turning to the right, and then it's a 2 strides distance on towards number 29. But I think, you know, this is where the difficulty is going to occur. It could be quite difficult to be turning your horses by now. If you find that you can't get round, there is the option, because this is 28, that's 29. You are allowed to do a circle between the two fences. So if I find I'm not turning, I'm not getting round to the right, I'll veer off to the left, canter a left circle, and then approach it as a fence on its own.
But you'll hopefully avoid that if you're trying to save time.
Well, that's right. That's going to take at least, what, 8-9 seconds, which are sort of 3 time penalties. And those time penalties are very important. You know, you need to try, if you're going to try and win it, you need to try and get round inside the time.
And the rain continues for Mary. But let's hope she's not noticing it as the last big combination for her and Imperial Cavalier. He's a big striding horse. He shouldn't make this distance feel too long like some of the others haven't. And skips through there. No mistake like we had at Badminton.
Well, the rain which swept the nation also inevitably hit Burghley, but despite the mud, thousands braved the elements for the cross-country, with commentary from Clayton Fredericks and Alice Plunkett.